This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW.
Caviar is so, I would say, for me, for us, for Polanco, is very personal. The most proud I am is that we could make what most of the people never believed that we could.
This is Fishtales, a seafood podcast. I'm John Susman. The history of caviar begins not with the cured eggs themselves, but with the fish from which they come, the sturgeon. Sturgeon are members of a family of fish from an ancient lineage of bony fish that coexisted with dinosaurs. Humankind has been enjoying the fruits of the sturgeon for over 250 million years. Caviar consumption is increasing worldwide. With the definitive shift from wild to farmed caviar, the global supply and quality is at an all-time high. With the recent advances in sturgeon aquaculture and the expansion of luxury consumers, there remains vast potential in the category. The luxury market, however, whilst it can be extremely lucrative, can also be fickle. As consumers become more knowledgeable about caviar, they also become more demanding. As the caviar market matures, producers such as Facundo Márquez and his Polanco Caviar company, with their commitment to quality of both the fish, the caviar, and their relationships across the world of food, the future looks as bright as a freshly opened tin of beluga. First attempts at farming occurred. Within 20 years, farmed caviar was successfully marketed and with ever-increasing quality. Facundo Márquez, a native Uruguayan, is the founder and CEO of one of the world's most interesting and now large caviar producers, Polanco.
Well, hello, my name is Facundo Márquez. I'm from Uruguay, from Caviar Polanco. I founded the company 12 years ago, and I never thought I was going to finish producing caviar in my life. But this goes to several years ago when I got married, and we moved to Brazil because I was working at that time with another company, and I was traveling quite a lot. So after 2 years being there in Brazil and traveling, and my wife staying in Brazil, we decided that it was time to go back to Uruguay, but we wanted to do something different. And traveling, I saw that aquaculture in the world was growing. Uruguay has a lot of very good conditions for aquaculture. So I finally ended contacting a Russian who used to deal with the aquaculture business. So I invited him to come to Uruguay. And when this Russian expert came to Uruguay, the first thing he told me at that time was, well, this is perfect for sturgeons. This was back in 2008, and well, that's how the story began, let's put it that way, with a Russian in Uruguay telling me that sturgeons were fantastic to grow in Uruguay.
The connection between a country at the bottom of South America and Russian sturgeon is as fascinating as it seems almost obvious. The wet, green countryside and an ample supply of clean, cold water make it an ideal environment for farming the fabled fish.
Well, Uruguay is a very small country there in South America, and as a very small country and very, I would say, open to the world, we have very good relation as a country with everybody. One of these countries that we used to have good relation was the Russia, and also the in fact the Soviet Union many years before the Soviet Union collapsed. Let's put it that way. What happened is sturgeons were originally from the Caspian Sea. The Caspian Sea, it was surrounded by the Soviet Union and Iran, basically. And that's why today, some people thinking caviar and thinking Iran or Russia. But what happened is when the caviar started to be like a more trendy in the world and more, I would say, more people demanding, the fishing of sturgeons at the same time started to rise, and the sturgeons started to disappear. So the Soviet Union sent or asked a few scientists to study in which parts of the world the sturgeons could be good to raise. And that study tells that one of the best countries to raise sturgeons was Uruguay. At that time, as I mentioned, Uruguay and the Soviet Union had good commercial relations. In fact, Soviet Union used the Uruguayan port as a hub for their fleet, the Soviet Union fleet of the South. So there was a lot of Soviet Union scientific and the port and information come and go, and this I would say report gets to some Uruguayan hands. But the problem was that the Soviet Union didn't let the experts go out from Soviet Union to teach or to communicate, let's say, the know-how of how to raise sturgeons to others, because it was like a jewel, sturgeons, caviar, like a jewel of the Soviet Union empire, something like that. So they didn't let these experts go out. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, the first experts started to go out the country. Some went to France, some went to Bulgaria, some went to Italy, another went to Israel, and one of those experts finally ended up in Uruguay. That's how the story began. So we have a lot of connections with Russia, and well, the main thing is that we had to build first all the farm and get the first fertilized eggs of sturgeons from Astrakhan, which is a very famous city for sturgeon in the Caspian Sea. And that's how the story began there with us and Russia. It's a long but interesting story.
In a country known for its volcanic soil and incredible air and water purity, the Polanco farm is located in the Esterio del Plata in the waters of Rio Negro. These waters of the Rio Negro get cold in winter and temperate in summer, perfect for farming sturgeon.
We are located in a very small village called in the middle of Uruguay, called San Gregorio de Polanco. That's why our caviar today is named Polanco. So it's traditionally it's a village that is surrounded by water. It's like a small peninsula there. 2,000 people live. They are very they used to work a lot with fishes because they are surrounded by water. And when with this Russian years ago, when we started traveling around Uruguay, because we didn't know where we were going to build the farm, so we went all around Uruguay, and we found out that the best place was in this little village in the middle of Uruguay. And that's also how the story began there in San Gregorio de Polanco. When you raise sturgeons, to be sure that the water is of good quality, that you have enough, let's say, deep in the river so that if you have some not so much rains or whatever, you are not in a risk. In not as it is a peninsula, the river there makes like a kind of a turn, so the current is not so direct. Because if not, could be more difficult to manage all the cages there in the river. And well, the temperature also is. I would say that's in Uruguay. The temperature we don't have like very high temperatures, neither or warm or cold. But it's basically because of that. The water was of good quality, in good quantity, good deepness of the river, and the people there. Another very important thing is this is a tough work, being in a aquaculture sturgeon farm and dealing with storms in the water, and the people there were used to work with fish, and they are surrounded by water, so they are very tough people that they know how to deal with fishes. That was also very important for us.
Starting a new industry can be challenging, requiring a combination of research, hard work and commitment. The story of Polanco is one such story.
Well, before starting the farm, we had to put a project in place. Building a sturgeon farm in Uruguay, as you can imagine, is not easy, because there are no, I would say, we had to import everything from different places. We have to build this project, which would take years then of investment, this is not small investments. You have to also have a lot of patience. So I also started to visit some people that could come with me, let's put it that way, in back me in the project. So that also takes time. Once we have all that in place, we started traveling to start buying all the technology for the raising of the sturgeon. So we traveled with this Russian expert. We traveled to Russia, where we bought some equipment. We traveled to Latvia. We traveled to Ukraine. We traveled to China. We traveled to Chile. So getting all things together. So that was also quite a big experience. And when we ended putting it all together, it took us, let's say, 1 year, more or less. And then once you have all set there in the farm, the first thing you have to do is bring the fertilized eggs. And for that, it was also quite a big story, because bringing fertilized eggs from Russia, you need more or less 40 hours to be sure that all the fertilized eggs are not dead when they arrive. So, well, that was also a big issue that we have to manage. In fact, the first import of eggs was in February 2011. That was our first import of fertilized eggs. When they arrived, and after 2 years of working, all the eggs were dead. So that's how the story began, with all our first eggs were dead. So at that point, I well, where are we standing now? All we have done, and all the eggs are dead. Well, we did some more homework, some more learns, and 1 month later we took another batch of fertilized eggs, and that went well. So that's how the story with the sturgeons already there in the farm, and that was back in February 2011.
Innovation can be a story of trial and error, with perseverance an essential ingredient to be successful.
Well, sturgeons take a long time. First, the process is we take we take the fertilized eggs to the farm. Then we put them in incubators there, in special incubators that we brought from Russia. Then the sturgeons are born, and we have to wait the first big step there is after 2 years, because after 2 years you can sex the males and the females, because up to then you don't know which sturgeons are females and which are eggs, and you want the females to get to give the eggs for the caviar. So we just choose the best males, and the males there, all the rest of the males, which is around 50% of what we have, we sold it as meat, and the females continue their process. How long it takes depends on the species you raise. In our case, we are raising two main species are Accipenser baeri, which is commonly known as Siberians sturgeons, and Accipenser geldenstati, which are commonly known as Russian sturgeons, from what you get the Osetra. In the case of Siberian, the first time they ovulate, or let's say an average of when they ovulate, is around 6 years. So we have to wait 6 years until their first ovulation is the first time they produce their eggs, and that's the time we harvest, because to get those eggs in the perfect moment when the eggs are bigger and the membrane and texture of that egg is in the best moment, the only way to get it is you have to sacrifice the eggs. That's the traditional way to do it. So yes, we have to wait 6-7 years to get that first batch of eggs in the case of Siberian, and between 7, 8, 9 years in the case of the Osetra. So it's a long journey.
Farming sturgeon to produce caviar is no quick process. It takes years just to grow the strong, healthy fish who can produce high-quality eggs, the essential ingredient for any good caviar. To succeed in caviar production after years of nurturing the fish must be a great relief to the farmer.
Well, how did we feel? People were, all of the workers, in fact, I would say almost all of them still are from the beginning from us. The first harvest, after 6 years of harvesting, of raising them, they were all crying, It was, because they were not used to, after 6 years of raising sturgeon, and then you have to sacrifice them to get in the egg. So it was, at that moment, today sometimes, we think sometimes we think in all what we have done. At that moment, we were just thinking okay, now we have the eggs, we have the caviar, and we were starting to think in next step, it was now we are going to sell them. So we didn't have time, although you have to wait a lot of years until you don't have it. Nobody wants to buy you because they don't have any clue on how was going to be. The good thing that at that point we were already working with some French also, and we realized that our caviar was very, very nice. So, but well, we didn't have time to celebrate. We just continue. Very proud, I would say, after so many years, and we can get the caviar. And until then, we didn't know how it was going to be, because you can do everything, wait 6, 7, 8 years, and then you have a product that you are not proud of it. But the thing is that it went very, very nice. And as far as the first samples that we sent, we just sold out. So we were very, very proud. But again, this is a long journey, and you keep looking forward.
Farming healthy fish which produce high quality eggs is only a small part of the story of caviar production, which requires a high level of precision handling from the fish to the pack to the plate.
The first thing is detecting the best moment to obtain the egg. And we do that through ultrasound. So we have to check female by female through ultrasound, like the pregnancy, one by one, and see when we see that this is the perfect moment, we take that all those sturgeons to the beginning of the process, where we take those eggs. Then those eggs are cleaned only by water. We don't touch the eggs. You only clean it with water. That's why also very important that the eggs, what we say, you get the eggs from the gonad of the female. So you want a gonad with less fat possible, because if the gonad has less fat, you need less water to clean it, and if you use less water to clean it, you don't affect too much the texture of the egg. So as you know, everything has is related. And also very important to obtain a less fatty gonad, which comes from a less fatty sturgeon. The sturgeon needs to be in a environment that can, first of all, good feed, and second one, in a good environment that keep us strength. And the fact is that raising sturgeons in the river keep the sturgeons swimming every day against the current. And as they swim and swim every day, they are strong and less fatty. So with less fat, it gives a less fat gonad and a good egg to start the process. So we get those eggs, we clean it with water, and basically then we added salt in a percentage that depends on each farm and on each terroir. We add 3.5%. Usually it's a 3.5% of salt. In our case, we use salt from the Andes in South America, mine pure salt from the Andes. So we try also to give a regional tasting for all our caviar with this special salt. And then once we mix with the salt, we put it in what we call mother tins, original tins. These are big. Today are used to be metal. Today are plastic tin, big, of 1.5 kilos or 1 kilo. These big plastic tins, which are called mother tins, have very little holes, because what happens is through those holes in the tins, very small holes, oxygen gets into the caviar and start what is called the maturating process, because caviar is an alive product, so it keeps evolving, like could be a cheese or a wine. So we keep it there for some months for maturation, until, in the case, for example, of Australia, we send it here in those mother tins, and our partners here in Australia, which are Yarra Valley Caviar, which is another story that we can also then later tell, they repack just before delivering. So keeping the caviar in those mother tins just until the customers here in Australia receive it is a huge advantage, because the quality can be keep as perfect as possible until the last minute of delivery. So once you repack, these are small metal tins or aluminium tins, vacuum. So once they are repacked there, you cut the maturation, because you take all the oxygen in, and from there on, yes, we sell it there in the market. Best temperature to keep the caviar is between minus 3 centigrades Celsius degrees and plus 3 or 4 Celsius centigrades. That's the best temperature to keep them for maturation. Now, there is no problem if you're going to keep for a few weeks or even a few months in up to +7, which is more or less the fridges that we have at home or in many restaurants or shops. So that's not a problem. That's the best way to keep it. So it's between -3 and +7. That's a range that we recommend. Of course, it's very fragile because we don't use any preservative, just salt. So the cold chain should never be cut.
Producing fine caviar has become an art, driven in part by the nuances of flavours and textures demanded by gourmands. As the quality of caviar has improved, so too has the subtle art of tasting, designed to extract and identify the best culinary experience. And just like wine, different markets have differing preferences.
I would say that when we taste a caviar, and remember we are just tasting the product, and for us it's not just the product. Remember, in a tin perhaps there's 7, 8, 9 or 10 years of processing. So for us it's also very, very important where it's coming from, the origin, certifications, be sure what we are having. So that's why we always recommend customers to understand where it's coming from, knowing where it's coming from, because that's the first thing to know before you taste the caviar. And then when you go strictly to the product, we mainly look for, I would say, 4 main characteristics, which are basically the taste, the size of the egg, the color of the caviar, and the texture of the caviar. For us, for me personally, and I'm sure for most of the people that are more used to the caviar, for us the most important thing is the taste, okay, and then the texture. In terms of taste, we look for a caviar with enough, let's say, oil, and an oily caviar, because that's the way it can remains in the mouth for a longer time, like a long mouth. Like in the wine, you look there for a good caviar remains nicely in your mouth. So you look for an oily caviar. Not tasting as fish, but tasting as butter, as nut, those kind of sometimes of chocolate. You start finding new flavors. Also depends on the maturation, because a very fresh caviar, let's say a caviar of 1, 2, 3, even 3 months, is what we call a quite young caviar or fresh caviar. And the real complexity of the caviar starts after that. Okay, so once the caviar is more mature, and that when you taste it, it has much more flavors and much more complexity. So for us, number one, flavor, but we also understand that in the market, most of the people don't know about caviar. They are just getting into caviar. The caviar consumption is growing worldwide, so many people are just beginning to understand caviar and learning about caviar. So the taste, they don't really know at the beginning what's good or what not, because they don't have any previous experience. So also size and color is important, because it's the first connection with the caviar. So for new customers, size and color is also important. And in the texture, we want a caviar, and I talk a little bit then about the color. But in the texture, we look for a caviar caviar should be soft, but enough firmness to feel each egg independently when you taste it. When you push the caviar with your mouth onto your palate, you need to feel that independence of the eggs, not all the eggs like mixed together, but also in a soft texture. So it's very specific what we look for. And in terms of the color, they are not good or better color than others. It's, for example, I'll let you know an example. Russians, the beluga, which is like the most famous caviar, which today in the market you cannot find, because what you can find usually are hybrids between a male beluga and a female of other species, but they sell it as beluga. But well, that's another story. The beluga color is usually light grays, light gray. So Russians like caviars of gray and light grays because they make the relation to the belugas. In the case, for example, of Japan, they like black caviar because they say this is black caviar, it should be black. But there are now other markets that they like lighter colors because they are most uncommon. So they value more the lighter colors. So that's more or less in terms of how we evaluate the caviars, depending on the markets, because there are markets with more experience in caviar, and let's say in those markets probably they like a more mature caviar. In new countries or people when caviar is quite new, like in Australia, we recommend to start from fresh caviars and then start moving on for more mature caviar once they understand how they taste.
COVID had a dramatic effect on the world of food, no more so than in the world of luxury food. For a business that is projecting forecasts 7 to 10 years into the future, the pandemic posed issues for the caviar industry like no other part of the world of food.
Let me tell you a little bit about the last years also, because the history also changed in this last 2-3 years with the COVID situation. Caviar business takes a lot of time. So although the demand today is very strong, you cannot just produce more caviar from one day to another. So you have to look many years. Not next year, not 2 years, not 3 years. We need to look for 8, 9, 10 years. And we don't know what's going to happen next month in this world. So imagine in so many years. So we have to be very, very careful. And today we're in a moment where, yes, the caviar has been growing for, I would say, several reasons. One of the reasons is because the Chinese get into the production of caviar. Let's say 10 years ago, or more than 10 years, there were no Chinese caviar in the market, and in few years, Chinese caviar flooded the market. So what happens there was this I'm talking about probably 8 years ago. So what happened is the offer from one moment to another one was much more than the demand at that point. So prices start to lower down. So when the price, as you may imagine, start coming down, some new customers start getting in. That process take a few years, and I would say just before the COVID, the pandemic, we were almost in equilibrium, and the demand was growing. The offer was quite stable, and then the COVID appeared. This was March 2020, and from one day to another one, customers just start calling me and says, "Facundo, stop deliveries." Not send me half or send me. It was stop deliveries. Everything is closed. So at that moment, say, okay, what are we going to do? Because nobody was knowing what was happening. It took us March, April. We decided at that point to reduce the production because we didn't know what was going to happen, and caviar, you can keep caviar for only 1 year, let's say, and that's the shelf life we like to use. So for many months we decided not to produce. In mid 2020, consumption started to move a little bit again. That's because restaurants started to open with half their staff or whatever. Deliveries started to work during the pandemic. Hotels were still not opening. Airlines started a little bit to open again. Cruise lines were still closed. But what happened, or not amazingly, something that we never predicted, was that at the end of the 2020, caviar consumption explodes. And we didn't understand at the beginning why. Now we know, and that's because people was tired of being, at home. They couldn't travel, they couldn't go out, so they just decided to enjoy life. and they have money because they didn't have where to spend it. So they say, okay, let's start enjoying life, and they start asking for good champagne, caviar, and the demand exploded. So that took us to sold out of caviar. We sold out all the stocks, everything what we had. That was at the end of 2020, and that same thing I would say happened to most of the caviar farms. Nobody expected. 3 months before, I was talking with customers, and they said, "I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know." And at the end of the year, everybody was calling, "Send caviar, send caviar." Nobody predicted. So I would say from the end of 2020 and up to today, we are still running after the demand, because we still couldn't have the time. We and all the other farms in the world, we couldn't keep the stocks, rebuild the stock, because we are now like producing and selling. It's crazy. I would say today the restriction is the production and not the demand. And with new countries also getting in, because as I mentioned, when the price started to went down and there was more offer of caviar, farms started to go out to sell directly to new countries, to diversify production. So Asia, Southeast Asia, countries never consumed caviar before started asking for caviar. Latin America, Central America, new destinations. So I would say caviar now is more democratic, let's put it that way, than several years ago. But we are still in a complex moment, the growing, but it takes time to recover again the production.
As the world awakens to the wonders of caviar, so too have producers become excited about the category. The current geopolitical issues relating to Russia, however, has thrown some uncertainty over both the supply and demand for caviar.
In the caviar business, you have so many things happening and exporting to so many countries and having so many different stories and so many different things happening. Like, I tell you one, just very, very, the thing with the invasion of Russia to Ukraine. That for us was a big hit, because all the meat for us we were exporting to Russia, and we built relations with Russia for many years. So for us was how things in this world change so fast and so unexpected. So sometimes we don't have time to think. I know, so we have so much work and so much things happening that sometimes I really don't know. When I look 10 years before, and we were trying to do something different, and we look up today, and we are again in so many countries that I don't know. I think it was the passion. This is based on passion. Family is also very important, because they always support you in these long trips, very far away from home for many days. So I don't know. I have so many stories, so many things that happen. That was it's the whole journey, and I'm still sure we are just at the middle of this journey. So it's still a lot of things to do.
Running a family business which requires a long-term vision, both in production and sales, demands the development of strong relationships at every stage from water to plate. In Australia, Polanco's agents, Yarra Valley Caviar, share the same family values and commitment to quality.
Caviar is so, I would say, for me, for us, for Polanco, is very personal. We are here in a caviar business, which is family business today. I founded the company. My family is involved, so I don't think this as a just I'm here for a while. I'm looking for many years, and for that you have to build long-term relations. So I always say that our best markets is when you find someone that really share values with you, like what happens with us here with Yarra Valley Caviar in Australia. We share same values. We are both producers. So traveling, going to trade shows, and trying to find the correct partner. It takes a lot of years, a lot of how do you say, work, satisfactions and not satisfactions. But well, what we can say is after quite a few years, we are in almost 40 countries around the world. The most proud, I would say, that is something that when I started, everybody was saying that I was crazy. Raising sturgeons in Uruguay, producing caviar to export from Uruguay, the other part of the world in South America. So I would say the proudest, the most proud I am is that we could make what most of the people never believed that we could. And that has many factors and many people involved, not just in Polanco, but all over the world. So that I would say is what we feel more proud about it.
Caviar consumption is increasing worldwide. With the definitive shift from wild to farmed caviar, the global supply and quality is at an all-time high. With the recent advances in sturgeon aquaculture and the expansion of luxury consumers, there remains vast potential in the category. The luxury market, however, whilst it can be extremely lucrative, can also be fickle. As consumers become more knowledgeable about caviar, they also become more demanding. As the caviar market matures, producers such as Facundo Márquez and his Polanco Caviar Company, with their commitment to quality of both the fish, the caviar, and their relationships across the world of food, the future looks as bright as a freshly opened tin of beluga. This is Fishtales, a seafood podcast. A Deep in the Weeds production. I'm John Susman. Follow us on Instagram at Fishtales Seafood Podcast or email us at fishtalespodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay tuned for more tales from beneath the surface of the seafood world every Friday on your podcast app.